This American Legion. Hey, so welcome. Hopefully this is not the last time we see you here. It's a great post, largest post in Kansas. We do a lot of great things here for veterans and their families and the community, and that kind of leads into my next little sales pitch right here. Our 2026 membership drive is going to be starting here in a couple weeks. If you're not a member yet, please hold off maybe till next month. You get that 2026 card. So again, you don't have to be a veteran to be a member here. We have the auxiliary, we have the sons, and we have the riders, and of course the legionnaires are the veterans. All right, we appreciate all new members. We really love to recruit younger members, and when I'm talking younger, I'm talking like around 50, you know what I mean? So, but you know, if we get some people before that, like 20s, 30s, 40s, that's awesome because they are the leaders of the future. But unfortunately, life happens for younger families and younger veterans, so it's kind of hard to join sometimes until you're about 50. That's when I joined, when I was 50. Sometimes we get brand new members who are a little bit more seasoned, maybe a little more mature, right? Brand new members. I'm going to introduce one of our newest members of Post 370. I met Mr. John Martin at a Memorial Day ceremony. Got to talking to him and found out that he has never been a member of the American Legion or the VFW. He said no one had invited him. So I'm going to do a PSA right here. You do not have to be invited to be a member of the American Legion, all right? Just like the military, just join up. If we don't like you, we'll kick you out, all right? But for the most part, we're probably going to keep you, all right? Again, got to talking to him. At this time, I'd like to introduce, he's taking a sip right now. Let him take a sip. I'd like to introduce our newest member of Post 370, World War II combat veteran, Technical Sergeant John Martin. You got a standing ovation, John. Well deserved. All right, thank you so much. Well deserved. At this time, John, we're going to present you with your membership card. All right. So now you are a true member of American Legion Post 370. And also we're going to give you a ball cap. And we did a little shopping. It's got your rank on there. It's got your combat infantryman badge on there, your Bronze Star, and your division patch. So you're looking sharp there. All right. While we're talking about John, let me tell you a little bit about him. All right. John obviously served during World War II. He was sent to Europe with the 84th Infantry Division. He earned the rank of Technical Sergeant as a combat rifleman. John landed on Omaha Beach a few months after D-Day. He fought battles across France, the Netherlands, Germany, and Belgium. His most notable campaign was the Battle of the Bulge, which was launched by the Germans in the Ardennes Forest, a region between Belgium and Luxembourg. And this was the coldest winter of the century. As acting platoon leader, Technical Sergeant Martin was awarded a Bronze Star for an encounter in Germany. But he always says that his combat infantryman badge means the most to him. And he's proudly wearing it right now. After the war, John graduated from The Ohio State University. He got married, had 3 kids, a rewarding career with Montgomery Ward. Remember Montgomery Ward? He was an executive in their catalog operations, so leading them into the emerging world of computerization. He was married to his late wife, Barbara, for 76 years. Here he's with his daughter, Lori, her husband, Lloyd, who's also an Army veteran. Artillery. Boom, boom. All right. He has 2 grandkids and 2 great-grandkids, And next month in July, John will turn 102 years old. I was going to say, let's hear it again for our hero from our greatest generation, John Martin. All right, at this time, we'll go ahead and start the regular program. Well, before I do that, I want to say, please follow us on Facebook. Just look up American Legion Overland Park, and we'll pop right up. Also follow F.I.S.H, so you can keep up on all the events that we have coming up. All right? All right, now we're going to turn it over to do the pledge and the prayer.
Walter? Walter just had surgery, but he looks okay to me.
If everybody please rise, and if you can, and then please uncover or take your hats off. So, depends on which branch, I guess. So. Okay, dear God, thank you for another glorious day, and thank you for our World War II veterans, what knowledge they passed on to us. And dear God, please bless everybody in harm's way around the world and those protecting us every day and not asking for anything else. And dear God, please bless our congregation here tonight and grant us safety going home tonight. In the name of Jesus Christ, amen. Okay. If please remain standing, Pledge of Allegiance. And we got a flag there, flags there. Okay. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I'm not going to drop the mic, so there you go.
Well, first of all, welcome everybody. We got some great entertainment tonight. Andy's in the room. This is good. Before I introduce our speaker tonight, Lieutenant Colonel Mark Morgan, I'd like to have Andy run through a little bit of our latest event. We had just had the combat golf tournament last week, and if you watch the screen real quick, we'll be flashing some pictures. And Andy, give us how'd it go?
Well, it was fantastic, and just FYI, I was like the fourth person down the line to talk about it, so I just found out that I'm talking about the golf tournament. So I'll wing it the best I can here. But no, it was a beautiful day. The weather worked out great. Got a little warm at the end, but oh man, it was. I think I've been a part of the golf tournament for 6 years now, and this by far was the best one in my opinion. They just keep getting bigger and better every year. And this is Service Dog 43, 46, 46. Yep, 46. Service Dog 46. So please, let's applaud F.I.S.H for that. That's a big deal there. Oh, they got me on there. All right, yeah. Y'all like my outfit? My goal was to be easily noticed for all the volunteers that that were around, so they could find me. And there's Doug and Lieutenant Colonel Roger Donald, his service dog. We gave, was that 3 years ago or 2 years ago? We gave Don 3, yeah. That's a good pick, yeah. What's the name of that plane? Yeah, during the right after the national anthem too. That was awesome. But yeah, great turnout, awesome day. Everyone had. Raise your hand if you were at the golf tournament. Let's see it. Everybody, raise your hand. Where's Jamie at? There he is. Yeah, we all had fun. Beautiful course, beautiful day. Oh, that's it.
years, Hy-Vee and Friends in Service of Heroes have worked together to their veterans. Chris Doss.
A new law is being made right now in Olinda. Fox 4's Marcus Officer is there live to show us. Marcus, good morning.
We have a lot to show you. In fact, the guys are getting into their carts and headed to the course right now. This is one of the, if not the largest fundraiser that F.I.S.H puts on year after year. And once you realize why, you understand the participation and the turnout. We got three important people to talk about right now. One is Michael over here. Michael Gainey is a retired sergeant. His new friend Lily was gifted to him this morning, and Chris Wilpunk, you were here. You were from Hy-Vee. It's this partnership with F.I.S.H, Hy-Vee and F.I.S.H, that has helped this come together. 12 years, more than 40 dogs have gone out. What did you think of today's 46th dog pairing and the impact that's going to have on this well-deserving veteran?
It's a great honor to be here today with Hy-Vee and then sponsoring F.I.S.H and then seeing Michael with his new puppy. This is great. This is what it's about. It's about service to our heroes, and I'm blessed to be here with the Hy-Vee crew and with F.I.S.H, and we're glad to be here today.
This turnout is an indication of the impact it's having. For someone that's not been part of it, how would you describe what took place here today and what the work that F.I.S.H does year in, year out?
I think it just proves that there's people out there that have a platform and they go out and take care of our service people. The folks that are serving today, there's ones that have served, and today with Lily and Michael is a good evidence of there's really good in the world and here to take care of our heroes.
Year after year, there's these pairings. There's also that need to know that there's an organization locally working as hard as F.I.S.H is to make these dreams come true. How special is that for Hy-Vee to be side by side with a group like that?
For 12 years, Hy-Vee has been a huge sponsor with F.I.S.H. Paul came into one of our stores at one time and said, hey, can you give us a hand? And it was just the right cause at the right time, and it's been a blessing to be a part of it over 12 years at Hy-Vee.
Chris, we appreciate your time, and we're going to end with one look at Lily. In fact, she's been on her back getting belly rubs, walking around. This is probably the sweetest greeting I've ever seen a dog give anybody. I think Lily and Mike are a match made in heaven. We'll hear from them coming up at 9 o'clock. Until then, wipe away your eyes and those tears. It'll be okay. We'll send it back to you in the studio.
That's great. All right, thanks a lot, Marcus Officer.
Matt.
We got a surprise for Andy. You can't go anywhere. Jamie, here you go.
All right. I want to first of all say thank you to all you veterans.
Storm season is in full swing. Hey,
Say thank you to all you veterans. We speak English. That's what I want to say first of all. And on behalf of F.I.S.H, I participated in the golf tournament. Andy was there. He did a great job. And this is thank you for your generous commitment, time, and leadership. Your support helped make the 12th F.I.S.H Combat Golf Tournament possible and meaningful. We're deeply grateful for your dedication to our mission and the heroes you serve.
Thanks, Andy. Yeah, you betcha. Speech. No speech, he's done. By the way, we have a tradition here at our speaker series I'd like to continue tonight. Let me hear it. Has anybody here been in the Army? My goodness. How about the Marine Corps? Oh, that's more like it. Boy, their crayon breath about blew me over there for a minute. Navy. And to my knowledge, we've got a bubblehead here who was stupid enough to stay underwater in submarines, and it's the first time I've seen a bubblehead at our meeting. Thank you for coming. Space Force? No, Space Force. Someday. No, I didn't forget. I saved the Air Force for last. How about the Air Force? Okay, one more time. Air Force! Coast Guard. Any Coasties here tonight? By God. In Overland Park, Kansas? That's amazing. Thanks for coming. You know, following the golf tournament, we have our first, hopefully annual, Family, Friends, and Service camp out on June 27th, 29th. And I think we still have a couple of slots empty if you and the family want to come out and bring a tent, bring a camper. We're going to have a good time at that camp out. 4th of July in Gardner, Kansas. There's a country western concert the F.I.S.H is going to support. The Marines are going to be there with poolies. They're going to say they pledged to join. The Army's recruiters are bringing Army recruiters, and those recruits are going to, say they're pledged to service. And we'll be giving a dog away, and live music, games, food trucks, and fish. So if you can make it, we'd love to see you. Next month's speaker, John Clark, POW for over 2,000 days at the Hanoi Hotel in North Vietnam, and has an incredible story. And I beg everyone that if you're free that night, you're going to be amazed at the story of this guy and what happened at the daily tortures, etc., that he went through. And Colonel Pat Proctor, Army, 25 years, commander of the 4th Battalion, 1st Field Artillery, will be joining us on Thursday, August 21st. So there's the next two speakers are going to be great. Tonight, what can I say about Lieutenant Colonel Mark McMahon? I've got a bio here. He graduated from KU, aeronautics, meteorology. So you're a rock guy. Okay. Became a pilot in the Marine Corps, flew Hueys, and his service. I can talk about all his awards and every place he was at, but the one thing that really impressed me was that he was deployed 725 days, flew over 1,000 hours combat flight time, and a total flight time of over 6,000 hours, and demonstrated great leadership, in the Air Force. He was a cross-dresser. He was in the Marine first, went to the Air Force, and that's fine. Can either of those uniforms still fit you, Mark? The Air Force does. Yeah, they have the little elastic thing, I think, in the waist. The Air Force uniform, yeah, I'm aware of that. Well, Mark, the floor is yours. It's my honor. I'd like everyone to stand because, gentlemen, tonight you're going to hear from a warrior. Mark, if I could have 1 second.
I turned it on.
Well, he's fiddling with
It's
his
in
mic.
green.
I'd like all the veterans here tonight to stand
Hello?
and
There it
with
is.
me salute our World War II veteran. Sir, for your service, thank you. All right, thanks. Mark, the floor is yours.
All right. We've had a lot of very distinguished people speak to us before. I don't have any medals of valor. I got a whole bunch. I was there, medals and everything. But I was born here in Kansas City. I'm just going to take you through this. I have a very interesting career arc, as a doc can probably tell you. And I'm just going to take you through that career arc and tell you a few stories from each segment. So I was born here in Kansas City. Here I am with my mom, my first New Year's Eve. But I was always, my dad was a pilot at Richards Guevara. He was in the Air Force Reserve. And look, I was always fated to be a pilot. You could see I was dressed in flight suits at a young age. That's my dad's flight helmet from his open cockpit airplane that he owned. There I am holding an airplane in my hands. And then, and that's my dad's commissioning photo from 1954. He was an aviation cadet. He was commissioned and winged on the same day in 1954. And there's my boot camp photo from 1984 when I enlisted in the Marine Corps Reserve. I served with the 2nd Supply Platoon over in Topeka. They gave me a really nice bonus, paid for my tuition through Kansas. I studied atmospheric science, did a few radio weather broadcasts for KJHK, and the KU Weather Service. And then, somewhere along the way, I got married. I couldn't have done it all without her. When we started dating, I was a Lance Corporal. It's my wife, Alicia. Raise your hand, dear. When we started dating, I was a Lance Corporal. She held out until I was a lieutenant. And one of the interesting things about her, and unfortunately, she knew about the SWAT. We think that TV show Major Dad, she knew she was going to get spanked at the end of that line. But one of the unique things about this is we have a mixed force sword arch. There's Marines, sailors, and a soldier, a couple of soldiers in there. So it was kind of a unique thing for us to do. They'd never seen anything like that in Blue Springs, Missouri ever, and haven't since. So off to pilot training, off to Corpus Christi. VT-27, the mighty T-34, Charlie. This is my first solo flight as a Marine flight student, Marine lieutenant. I actually have a little model of that airplane made up. It's pretty cool. It's a very interesting thing when you, and they actually let Alicia out on the flight line to take that picture. Usually you can't take pictures on the flight line, but they know these are big events. This is the first step in the long career of aviation. So back to Pensacola, HT-18 to fly the Sea Ranger. There's not a whole lot to talk about in pilot training. It's true. It's like drinking from a fire hose. You have to memorize a whole lot of stuff. Have to be ready to regurgitate it at the drop of a hat. And if you don't, you get yelled at. It's just that simple. And if you get yelled at too many times, they go find something for you to do on the ground. And you don't get to go to a combat arms if you fail out of pilot training. So you're stuck in the rear with the gear. That's my winging. So between my brother and I and my dad, we have all 3 types of wings you can earn in the United States military. At the time, my brother had just graduated from Warrant Officer Candidate School and flight training at Fort Rucker as an Army Huey pilot. So my dad, in retirement as a full colonel, he flew a whole lot of stuff. And then there I am in my ice cream uniform, which they don't even wear anymore. Now they wear blue whites. In the summer, they don't wear all white. It's now an obsolete uniform with my Naval Aviator wings on. So off to HMT 303 and MAG 29. This is my active squadron, HMLA 269. I initially started out as a Huey pilot with 269. Flew the mighty UH-1N Huey. And these pictures going forward are all aircraft tail numbers that I've actually flown. So I flew Hueys, deployed in the Huey, had every instructor qual in the Huey, and then deployed with HMM 263 on board the United States ship Kearsarge, which was an LHD. It was their maiden voyage, and you can see that I got the maiden voyage patch on the back of my jacket right over there. I brought my brag jacket in. And if you might remember, some of you are old enough to remember the spring of 1995 when a young airman named Scott O'Grady got shot down in Bosnia. Well, I was on the 24th MEU. I deployed on the 24th MEU with HMM 263. We're a composite squadron. We had Hueys, Cobras, CH-53s, CH-46s, and Harriers. And we put together the package to go rescue Scott O'Grady out of Bosnia. Unfortunately, we didn't fly Hueys on that package. Although I had a really good plan, they didn't choose my plan. They chose the other plan. So they took 2 53s and 2 Cobras in, grabbed him. I sat on the deck with my map all plotted out, all my checkpoints, ready to launch in case they ran into trouble. We were going to reinforce them in place. And luckily, they didn't need our use. They didn't need to use us to do that. And I had that map in my personal effects up until last February. We had a fire at my house, and I lost that map. And I was able to keep that map because I wouldn't let anybody stamp top secret on it. So that map has gone to the winds, unfortunately, and I don't believe I could resurrect that from memory. So then I went back to HMT 303, which is the training squadron, and I trained in Super Cobra. That's a hero shot at Prairie Goldwater Range in Yuma, Arizona. It's my last time flying the Cobra. It's pretty cool. Got to shoot a whole bunch of guns and rockets in the range and blow a bunch of stuff up. It's always fun to blow stuff up. I never flew the Cobra overseas. I left the Marine Corps shortly after I got trained in the Cobra, but by far it's my most fun to fly. And then there's the paint job they used when I first started flying the Cobra over, and that's the forest of eastern North Carolina, around Jacksonville, at Camp Lejeune. So then the Marine Corps says, hey, yeah, we don't want you to stay on active duty. You're going to have to go away. And I said, oh, darn. And I went to the reserve down in New Orleans for a year. I worked for a year offshore, flying helicopters out to the oil platforms, which was the cause of my most significant, to that point, flying event. I hit a bird. Had a bird go down the intake of my Jet Ranger after leaving the base in Grand Isle, Louisiana, and immediately started compressor stalling. So those of you who know anything about jet engines, when the compressor makes big banging noises and shoots flames out the stack, and the nose jerks around, and I thought, oh boy, I'm going in the water. Those helicopters were equipped with floats. You'll see a picture of one later on. Luckily for me, I was able to squeak a little bit of power out of it, make it back to the shore. Didn't have to blow the floats and do a water landing, which was fortunate for everyone concerned. So that was a pretty significant experience. But then I realized that driving to New Orleans and working in New Orleans was too far, because I was only home about 1 week a month. And when we left active duty, we came back to Kansas City because I wanted our kids to be close to their grandparents, because I didn't have that. We left Kansas City in 1968. We went back to the East Coast, and my dad circulated through assignments all over the East Coast. We were in Virginia, Massachusetts, back to Maryland, back to Virginia, back and forth. And I didn't come back to the Midwest until I went to University of Kansas. So I didn't want my kids to only see their grandparents infrequently. I wanted to have them here in Kansas City where they could have good relations with their grandparents. And I think we achieved that. So I had to find a new place to live. Start looking, new place to serve. So I start looking around. I do an expanding ring search. Some of you know what that is. And I go to Topeka. No, we don't want any. We don't do inter-service transfers. We don't need any naval aviators in our unit. We only hire Air Force pilots who are experienced in the tanker. Okay, oh, okay, man. So go to St. Joe, C-130 unit up there. That guy's like, oh, if you'd come here 6 months ago, because we just lost a lot of guys go down to Wichita to fly the B-1. But we filled those spots already, because they fill spots right away, because everyone wants to fly in the Guard. It's fun. I'm like, okay, well, all right. And then I get a whisper. The ops group commander in Lincoln, Nebraska, flew F-4s in the Marine Corps. Then he flew F-4s in the Nebraska Air National Guard. And then when the Air National Guard up there swatched to KC-135s, he stayed on. And I decided just to rush that unit. So I put on my bag, a flight suit, drove up there to Lincoln on a drill weekend, and said, hi, I'm Mark, and I want to be your friend. Will you hire me? And Bob Batman says, hell yeah, we need some more gold wings around this outfit, so you're in. So they offered me a position flying. At the time, I was just a captain. And then the Marine Corps saw fit to promote me to major, which was pretty awesome, didn't expect that. And then I call up there, hey, will you accept me as a major? Oh yeah, your rank doesn't matter, come on up. So I joined the Nebraska Air National Guard, but before I could go to the Air National Guard, I had to learn how to fly jets. So I went to Vance Air Force Base, Enid, Oklahoma. The three-letter identifier for the navigational aid in Enid, Oklahoma is END. It's not the end of the world, but you can see it from there. And I learned how to fly the mighty T-1 Jayhawk. So that is the Air Force's multi-engine basic trainer. I never flew any other training Air Force plane. I didn't fly T-37s or T-6s. I got to go right into the little business jet. Flew that for about 6 months. And then they sent me off. I went to the guard, checked into my unit. We affectionately refer to that as the farting dart. The Nebraska Air National Guard in Lincoln, Nebraska, the 173rd Air Refueling Squadron, to fly the mighty KC-135R Stratotanker. That picture was taken in Karup, Denmark, my first overseas exercise with the Nebraska Guard. And one of the significant, interesting things about that deployment was the O Club at that base was built by the Nazis. And it still had an inlaid tile floor with swastikas and Nazi stuff in it that they left there to remind them that they'd kicked them out, that they had, that they were no longer in possession of that land. Because as much as us flying guys might say, you really don't own the ground unless you're drinking a beer in the other guy's O Club. And this is a picture of my final flight. So I did a lot of interesting things in the Nebraska Guard. I flew on a lot more different places than I went in the Marines. I only did the one deployment as a Marine to a med float. Did some cool things in Greece, did some cool things other places, but it's kind of limited. Got in the tanker, worldwide deployable. I went to every continent except for Antarctica and Alaska and Australia. Been to every other continent. Been to South America, been to Africa, been in Europe, been all over. But as you phase through your career, each time you do so, you end up in your final flight. This is my final flight. And one of the traditions is they hose you down when you get out of the plane. So they dumped an entire igloo cooler on me while I was on the ladder, and they hit me with the fire hose. So that was kind of fun. And then somewhere on the way, I decided I wanted to be a special operator. So I went to the Air Force Special Operations Command and the 745th Special Operations Squadron. And I flew the mighty RC-26B Condor. Now, I probably caused more casualties in the enemy by flying that aircraft than any other aircraft until it caused a lot of casualties in the MQ-1 too. But I was there in Iraq in 2008, 2009. Say I got shot at, they missed. Every time we flew about 700 hours in that airplane in about 7 months total in a year. So in 12 months, I flew 700 hours, over almost 800 hours in that airplane, and almost every bit of it was under 6,000 feet over Mosul or Baghdad. During the day, we were the only surveillance plane that flew during the day because we were the only one with onboard countermeasures for surface-to-air missiles. And we were engaged in the net-centric warfare during the surge in 2008, 2009. Probably. Oh, yeah, I know I did then. Absolutely. And I'll tell you a Mosul story then. So this was cool. So we're flying, and these guys are stopping. These soldiers are stopping vehicles on the street. They say, "Hey, we got this guy." So we know the guy, and so they did a call out. And they lined these guys up on the street, and they had them step out of line and look up. And that was us. So it was part of the psychological operations against them, which was pretty cool. Yeah. So that was a pretty good mission, and this is the mission that made me understand that most pilots didn't want to go to the RPA, to the remotely piloted aircraft, the MQ-1 or the MQ-9. It's not real flying, and it's not. You're operating the aircraft, but it's not the same kind of thing as flying the aircraft. But the Nebraska Guard says, "Hey, Big Ed, you got 26 years in service. You got 4 years time and grade as Lieutenant Colonel. You need to find a home. You have to retire." I said, "No, I'm not to retire. I just need to find a place that'll take a 6,000-hour grumpy old Lieutenant Colonel." And so, speaking of Mosul, that's on the ramp in Mosul. So I went to the 20th Reconnaissance and flying the MQ-1 Predator B. So I helped to start. I went down to Holloman Air Force Base, which is where the schoolhouse is. I learned how to fly the MQ-1. One of the more difficult things to do, and later on as I became an instructor, it's much easier to teach someone who's never flown before how to fly one of these things. Someone who has a lot of experience, especially in a dynamic aircraft like an F-16 or F-15. They have a lot of trouble learning how to fly an aircraft without actually feeling it move around them. They're not used to that. It's not something that they're programmed to. It's the purest form of instrument flying. So I flew that. I helped to stand the squadron up at Whiteman, 20th Reconnaissance Squadron. At times now the 20th Attack Squadron flying the MQ-9. So I started those guys up and trained a bunch of. They needed some adult leadership. I don't know why they called on me, but it was awesome. So I helped start that, and then went back to Holloman and became an instructor at the schoolhouse and DO of the Reserve Squadron down there. And then, of course, as we said, into every flight you run into your Finney flight. And you can see the Air Force doesn't skimp. That's the finest Andre champagne. But they did indeed apply the water dumps. I had a guy climbed on top of the GCS to dump a big bucket of water on me as I climbed out of the GCS. And to cap off my final flight operationally, I got a kiss from my sweetheart. So, and you can see that I switched to everyone's favorite, the banquet beer, because, you know, Bandit wouldn't have had to drive all the way to Atlanta if it hadn't have been for Coors banquet beer. But my real Finney flight, my absolute Finney flight, was in a T-38. So it was a good thing that my last flight was in a T-38. If my first flight had been in a T-38, I would have been pissed off for the next 15 years. Super fun. Went out there, did a air combat maneuvering exercise against a couple of F-22s, 2 T-38s, 5 F-4s. They shot us all down as fast as you can say it. And in fact, they programmed into the brief, in order to get a full experience, they do what they call a PK. It's a probability to kill miss. They say one of these missiles is going to malfunction in order to drive the combat into close quarters, and then you actually do the dogfight. In modern times, they don't dogfight. They shoot you with a missile from 100 miles away, depending upon the rules of engagement. But in order to get practice in dogfighting, they had to do a PK miss, because the F-22 literally doesn't ever miss. Nobody sees them coming, and they kill you before you can see it. But it was a pretty fun flight, you know. As you can see, we didn't stay straight and level. And then that's my retirement photo, my official squadron photo when I took my position. It's a pretty interesting career, and we were at the Battle of Britain party. That was a pretty good time. But this is a good contrast. So there I am in my fancy uniform. There's my dad in his fancy uniform. And then they tell you have to fly off into the sunset one day. Well, I didn't. I came back home. So the whole time I flew for Nebraska Air National Guard, I was a pilot here in Kansas City. That was just a part-time job. I was a traditional guardsman. My full-time job, I flew for Life Flight Eagle here in Kansas City. So I started I flew out of Harrisonville, and then I helped start the Clinton base for Life Flight Eagle. So I did a lot of helicopter EMS flying. And I would take, the whole time I was doing that, I would take a month off every fall, and I would go to the desert, and I would fly the tanker in Afghanistan and Iraq and do refueling missions in combat. Pretty interesting, pretty dynamic environment. And then I'd come home and go back to flying, rescuing people. So I left. So when I left to go on my last active duty tour, I left on military leave from my civilian job. So I came back and I said, hey, I want to go back to work. And he said, okay. So I went back to work. Did that for a year. And then a guy calls me up from my old squadron and says, hey, I got a great deal for you. I said, yeah? What is it? I mean, I was in the military 30 years. I'm a skeptic. He says, well, we're going to pay you this much. I said, how much? It was twice what I was making at Life Flight Eagle. And he said, well, okay. This was in 2015. I said, where? Well, I can't tell you. He goes, and I said, well, doing what? He said, you're going to fly the MQ-9. You're going to fly the Reaper. And I said, really? Okay, I'm not a Reaper pilot. He says, you're a Predator instructor. We'll get you trained up. And they did. And so I took the job. Lish and I drove down to Dallas to headquarters to find out where that job was going to be. And it initially wasn't too dangerous. So we went. Took the job, went overseas, started making twice what I was making at Lifeline. And said, hey, got another job for you. I said, oh yeah? Yeah, you want to go to Afghanistan? I was like, well, I don't know. And they said, well, it's an $85,000 a year raise. And they said, oh, okay, I'll do that. So I did that until 2015. And I was deployed in January of 2020. And I was supposed to come home on April the 3rd. Everybody knows what happened in March of 2020. The coronavirus showed up. Our good friend, the Wu Flu, came to town. And it came to town everywhere, and the Department of Defense says we can't swap anybody in and out, you have to stay. So I stayed and stayed and stayed. Came home at the end of June. And after my 3-month deployment stretched into 6. I said, okay. And 2 months later, they said, hey, you need to go down to Waco. You need to do a check ride. You're going back out. I said, whoa, hold on. I just got back. Yeah, we're only going to keep you home 3 months. I said, nah, that ain't going to happen. We just paid off our house on the 1st of September. And I still had my return. I had a pretty good Title 10 retirement. I did piled up enough active duty deployments, Title 10 orders during my time in the Guard and Reserve to qualify for an active duty retirement. And so I took it. And so I had that money coming in, and I had a pretty good cash position from this job that paid my house off. I'm like, you know what? Nah, I don't have to go back out. And then 10 months later, it all changed because they had that precipitous and embarrassing withdrawal from Afghanistan. But my last flight, that's me. It's my last flight in Afghanistan. That's no haircut from January till June. And if you look close, that's a KC Chiefs Hawaiian shirt. And I was a contract MQ-9 pilot in Afghanistan flying a pretty sophisticated piece of equipment looking for bad guys. So I told you all I flew for Life Flight. Well, first off, I started out for Med Force. That's a EC-135. I came back to that after not flying helicopters for 6 years. The instructor says, how long's it been? I told him. He said, oh, well, let's go. We went and flew it. We had 4 hours of instruction. The very next day, he gave me a check ride, and he passed me. So I started flying EMS. And then I came to Kansas City and started flying Eagle 3. So that's not me, but it's the aircraft I flew. I can't put any prisoners in there. You can't put any prisoners in there. And then there's the big stink bug. So that's what I flew offshore to the platforms, and that's what I had my bird encounter with. And these gray things on the pontoon, or on the skids or pontoons that pop out. They're floats that pop out if you have to land on the water. You have a trigger on your stick. You can blow things anytime you want. And then that, you're old. That's the last Cobra I flew as a Marine. Yeah. They had inducted the whiskey model Cobra into the Naval Aviation Museum in Pensacola. Alicia and I were vacationing in Destin, Fort Walton Beach, actually Fort Walton Beach. And I said, well, let's go look at that aircraft. And so I went and looked at it. I'm like, huh. And I looked at the markings, looked down the tail number. And that's actually the last aircraft I flew. It's the last entry in my logbook, my Marine Corps logbook. So it makes me a museum piece, I guess, if my aircraft's in a museum.
What's the difference? Like, to me, it looks like
It's smaller. It's much smaller than Apache. Even the Viper, the Z model, the new one, this has a 2-bladed rotor. The new model has a 4-bladed rotor system. This only has two mounts on the sponsons for weapons. The Viper's got a lot bigger. It's just like the difference between N-model Huey that we flew in the Marines. I was flying N-model Hueys in the Marines at the same time my brother was flying H-model Hueys in the Army. Same basic airframe, but a lot of specific mission changes to the aircraft to make them more suitable for the service it was flying in. The Navy Marine Corps don't like to fly single-engine aircraft over water. You might understand why. Yeah, because 2 is 1 and 1 is none. So that second engine takes you all the way to the scene of the crash. I know, which is the same. And they flew Harriers too. It was the same thing with the Harrier. And you pulled too many. Oh yeah, see, I was on the Care Sergeant. I landed on the Wasp. I landed on the Bonnie Dick before they burnt it up. So yeah, so they have the same mission. Lots of different weapon systems. The Apache has a lot more different weapon systems. The Cobra carries more a variety of weapons. The Apache is purpose-built to deliver Hellfire and rockets. That's it. I actually shot a drone down on the range with a Sidewinder missile off the Super Cobra down in Puerto Rico, which was pretty cool. And then there's this thing, always reminds me, once a Marine, always a Marine. That's why I still identify as a Marine. People ask, why did you join the Marine Corps? Why did you leave the Marine Corps and go to the Air Force? I said, well, I got tired of painting my face green and sleeping on our canvas. I like my steaks hot and my beer cold, not the other way around. And there wasn't a Marine Corps unit close enough, which is a real story. So we'll go back. I'll tell you a couple of deployment stories. So we're on the 24th MEU. We've rescued O'Grady out of Bosnia, and that turned into a dog and pony show extraordinaire with the parade of generals coming through that ship like you can't imagine. And so I'm flying generals in and out of Aviator, and we fly in one day, and it's just dog shit weather, just raining and stuff. And the rain's just leaking in the Huey, and it's 3 stars in the back as aides and major. We've got a couple of captains flying, and we're at the end of our deployment. We're pretty salty. And the major says, "Can you fly in this weather?" And I said, "Yes, sir. We wouldn't do anything. I'm not going to risk my wings just to fly the general around." And my co-pilot, who later on retired as a colonel, turns and says, "Oh, yes, sir. This is the all-weather Huey. All the weather you have outside, you get inside too." So we get him down there, and then we wake up the next morning, and there's a lot of mountains in Italy. We never saw them at all when we flew in. They were right there when we landed. I'm like, oh, glad we flew our approach. So we finish all this, and we finally get some liberty. We go to the island of Corfu in Greece. So we poured into Corfu. We're going to get 6 days of liberty. It's too shallow, you can't dock. So you have to moor out, and they tow you, and you have to go in and out by Liberty boats. So we get permission, because we're aviators. We get permission to have a squadron admin room. We rent a couple of hotel rooms in a hotel on the beach at Ipsos Beach in Corfu. So we're just crashing in those rooms every night, and it's all good. And finally, at the end of a week of drunkenness, I think we drank all the Guinness on the island. We get back on the ship, and we have Cinderella Liberty. It's the last night of port. We have Cinderella Liberty. So, and they call it that because you turn into a pumpkin at midnight. You have to be, and Liberty expires on the ship. So I get back on the boat about 11, and I hear this. What's up? It's a gunny. Hey, sir, Corporal Knucklehead's not here. And this is like 12:15. I'm like, well, no, because they had such a crowd to get on these buses to go down to the launch, to the fleet landing, and then ride the ships out to the boats out to the ship. They said, okay, Liberty expires. If you're in line, you're okay, you're safe. So finally, about 1:30, everything clears out. He's still not on the ship. Okay, bring me his Liberty partner. She had to go off on Liberty with a partner. He had to sign out with a wingman. So we bring his partner in. He says, sir, what the hell? Report to the captain. Sir, all happy horse shit. And all right, what? Tell me the story. He says, okay, well, we were in line and to go get on the bus, and these 2 girls came off, and he just left with them. I'm like, what? I said, yeah, he just left. I'm like, oh, fuck. All right, well, call it up the chain of command. Got to do it, right? Next morning, 7 o'clock, I'm up, I'm shaved. We're weighing anchor at 8. Phone call, sir, Gunny, what's up? He's on. He's back on the ship, and you won't believe his story. I'm like, oh, really? Okay. Hit me up with it. Bring him down here. Sir, report to the captain's order. And he walks in, And that dude looked like 10 miles of bad road. I mean, he was bad, hungover, just bedraggled like something the cat had drug in. I'm like, all right, Corporal, tell me your story. Sir, I said, he says, I left the line. I had to take a leak really bad, so I went off to find some place to go to the bathroom. And I was kidnapped by gypsies. And I said, really? Because we already talked to your Liberty partner. He just told us you wandered off with these two girls. Those were the gypsies. And I said, you know, you're going to have to come up with a better story than that, because I don't buy it. That's just not, you know, if you tell me something like, hey, it was my chance to go off with these two girls, and I'd never done that before, that's more believable than I got kidnapped by gypsies, and probably more understandable. So in one bad Liberty night, and it really pissed me off because this young man was a top performer for me. They were going to have an awards board that day, first day out of port, and his award packet was right on top. I recommended an Navy Achievement Medal for this young man, and he went from being an Navy Achievement Medal recommendee to a Lance Corporal with 3 months half pay and restricted to the ship for the remainder of the deployment. So, because his, you know, in the Marine Corps, especially justice delayed is justice denied. His Article 15 hearing in front of the commander was at 10 a.m. that very same morning. Standing in front of the man, I said, hey, you better go fix your uniform, have somebody else shave you, and don't cut yourself, and you're going to see what's going to happen. So it was very disappointing, and that was his off-ramp to actually being separated later after we got home, because he was in our parent squadron as well. It was just sad to see a guy just go off the rails, and just, it's unfortunate. So the picture of the 135 I had up, that was in Karup, Denmark, only place I've ever been where someone walked up to me in a bar and spoke to me in their native language because I looked like a local. There and in Iceland. Everywhere else, Americans stand out because we're so much larger than everyone else. But in Northern Europe, pretty much the same physical characteristics. You know, had a pretty long career, 30 years. No, not that anyone's counting. 30 years, 16 weeks, and 5 days. So almost evenly divided, with slightly weighted toward the Marine Corps side. So when I retired, went back to work at Life Flight, and I heard all that. Then I retired for good in 2020 when I came back, and I needed to find something to do because I was driving her crazy. And they asked me, and this is not the first time I've spoken here. But the first time I spoke here, I just talked about how the MQ-1 worked and how they fly their missions and how the satellites work and all that pure PFM stuff, how that works. So they gave me another opportunity since our initial schedule speaker fell out for today. But I needed to find something to do. So I gave a speech, and I started hanging out with these guys, and next thing you know, they buffaloed me into being on the board. And this organization changes people's lives. It's changed my life just being associated with it. It gives me a lot of validation and pleasure to help people that are in need. You know, everyone's life, you go through a lot of firsts, a lot of important, cool firsts. You know, your first kiss, first dance, first date, first kid. But then there's those of us that also have those first time you bury a friend, first time you hand somebody a folded flag, first time you see someone die a violent death, first time you cause somebody's violent death. Those are the things that change us. And no one goes over there, and no matter what they did, nobody goes over there and comes back unchanged unless they're fundamentally something wrong. So we exist to help people find their way through the minefield of coming back. You know, the service sends you through 10, 11, 12, 13 weeks of recruit training, depending upon the service. Then they send you off to MOS school, and then they train you up a little bit more, and then they send you to war. And you come back, especially if you have a short timeline, they give you 2 weeks of TAP training and say, see you, good luck. And you need to spend at least as much time retraining people how to be civilians as they did in training them how to be warfighters. And we don't. And that's a failure of us as a society, that we don't take proper care of our people. And so we exist to fill the gaps where people don't can't do it. You know, we gave a chair away last summer to a soldier on field at Kaufman. The Army wouldn't give him a chair. They'd given him a wheelchair. Well, he'd had a stroke. He was numb on one side of his body. Well, he can't wheel a wheelchair. So that powered chair wasn't just for him. It was for his spouse, too. Because now she doesn't have to push him around. He can drive himself around in that chair. Little things like that, you know. Years ago, we got a guy needed a new hospital bed in his home, World War II vet. Jerry Ingram. Some of you may remember Jerry. We gave Jerry a hospital bed. Found out on Friday he needed it. Had been trying to get one for months from the VA. Couldn't do it. Well, we had the agility. We wheeled the bed into his room on Monday and took care of him because we fill those gaps at the VA. You know, the VA is full of dedicated people who are handcuffed by bureaucracy. And I don't ever want to disparage anyone who actually works at the VA, but I will throw darts at the bureaucracy all I want. And then the gift of the dogs, you saw a picture there of one of the dogs we've given out. And you know, the recipient told us he hadn't slept a night through in 20 years. And all that VA does is give him Skittles, lots of pills. We got him that dog. In 6 months, he was off all those sleeping beds and sleeping through the night. So those are the kinds of things we do, and it's your all support that helps us to do that. And it's guys like, and I come to talk about my experiences, because encourage, if any of you guys need a burden, let us know. You take a rock out of your rock, shared burden, you know, as a lighter, it lightens your load. So at that point, I will open up for questions. Feel free. Plus, I brought some cool stuff in. I brought a couple of flying jackets and a blood shed, and a couple of jet helmet and a helo helmet too, if you guys want to take a look at that afterward. So, questions? Awesome.
Would you do it again?
Yeah, every minute. Yeah, and do it again.
So the Viper,
Yeah, Viper.
similarity to as far as I get it, like as far as the Black Hawk, they don't just let anybody fly there.
Oh yeah, the Black Hawk, everybody flies
You
Black.
gotta know what you're doing.
Well, that's for every aircraft. The hierarchy, the Black Hawk's the most common Army helicopter. So that's where your average pilot in the Army goes into the Black Hawk. Just like in the Marine Corps, when I was there, your average pilot when the Marine Corps went into the CH-46, into the C-9. Now they're going into the Osprey. That's where your average pilot goes. You have to be a little bit better to get into the Cobra, or in the Army side to get into the Apache. You got to be, or the Little Bird. You got to be a little bit better than your average pilot because they have a little more demanding mission.
Yeah, that's
So.
what I understood. I never, keep my feet on the ground.
Yeah, and the Black Hawk, you know, Sikorsky, good aircraft, very capable, but the Army's looking to replace it because they're 40 years old. It's an old design. Yes. Yeah, those are replicas. That's a replica. It's a replica. You're an intelligence officer, aren't you? Yeah, it's a replica. Blood shits are they're a controlled item because each quarter is worth, at least when I was flying out of Iraq, $25,000 in gold if you presented it to any U.S. embassy. So if somebody helps you, the whole idea was you go flying with one of these things, and this is a replica, because you can tell it's a replica because it's got a squadron logo on the side of it from the Flying Jayhawks. So it's printed in a bunch of different languages, in Persian and Arabic, Farsi, and it says, I'm an American and I do not speak your language. I will not harm you. I bear no malice towards your people. My friend, please provide me food, water, shelter, clothing. And it goes on. And then they give their corner of this, and they're numbered. And if they take it, when they take it to the embassy, they get paid because they helped you. Of course, this presumes, which is not an accurate presumption, that they can read a written language. So many tribesmen in the Middle East can't read. They can't read their own language. So even though it might be printed in their language, they can't read it. So yeah, C9, yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, they probably put it, well. Oh yeah, I went to SEAL. So I went to SEAL school 3 times. So when I went to Special Ops, I got to go to SEAR for Special Operations Forces. So it was they do the initial SEAR is just a yeah, sure it is. Yeah, I can never hear the poem Boots again. He's been to SEAR school. So they run you through. You evade, and then they capture you. You got to do an evasion phase. Then you got to do a confinement phase, and they do some minor pain compliance techniques to try to get you to divulge information. They're not allowed to hurt you, although I did come home with a couple of cracked ribs because I wasn't compliant fast enough. You're only allowed to do certain things, but when they throw a 200-pound guy down on the ground, sometimes things get broken. So, all right, I think it's time for us to wind it up. 8 o'clock, 8:05. All right, Doc, come on up.
Thanks, Mark. I'm not doing the stairs.
All right.
Thank you, sir. Well, raffle time. Everybody have a ticket? Any veteran does not have a ticket.
I do.
Raise your hand. Oh, look at that. Dan, you gonna help me here with that?
Yeah.